The biological warfare threat posed by China to the United States, Canada, and Australia is far bigger and far worse than you might think. So it turns out we also have some new intel on this situation, which I'm going to bring to you. And what disturbs me the most is the total failings of our intelligence committee, our intelligence communities to detect this threat, to connect the dots and do the field work that should have been done a long time ago. What's come out is some new findings with regards to the owner of the Biolab in Reedley, California, uh, Gia Bay Jew, who also owned the Biolab, which was found 3 years later in Las Vegas. Namely, uh, he not only listed the Las Vegas property in his bond that he filed for when he was arrested for the biolab in Reedley, California, which should have been a big red flag to start with, but in the last year, it turns out we now know he called that biolab 400 times. He called the Las Vegas property 400 times. Now, how is it that the guy who owned a biolab in Reedley, California, uh, also listed a property in Las Vegas as collateral for his bail, for his bond, whatever, uh, can not have that property investigated, and it turns out it's a biolab. He calls it in the last year 400 times. And aren't we told that our NSA has all this intelligence? Aren't we told that Palantir is watching everything? Bull cojones. No, there's something really missing here. And the sleuth work, the investigative work of the FBI is a complete fail in this regard. And as a matter of fact, let's make it more challenging here. Uh, the whole discovery of the Reedley, California lab was discovered kind of accidentally by a local code enforcer who happened to be going through the neighborhood and saw a pipe outside the facility that was dripping, which did not meet code. And then that led to an investigation of the facility in which they found all manner of biological agents, coronavirus, and HIV and other things. I'm going to go more detail into that and the kind of operation he was running there in a little bit. And mice that were genetically modified. Now, just anybody, you get genetically modified mice with human cells in them, right? Yeah, this is very interesting. But so, they arrest this guy, supposedly investigate him, but they don't check out the property that he lists as collateral, which he calls 400 times. How did that lab get discovered? Because it was also being run by Ori Solomon, a Israeli national, as a Airbnb, and it turns out some of the people that went there got deathly ill, which among other things tells you that the biological securities at both labs, it turns out, was highly remiss, which means they didn't give a dog about getting people infected. And it turns out that it was this lab in Las Vegas, the cover of it was blown by a housekeeper called the FBI on the 9th of January this year, a housekeeper. And she got deathly ill, amongst others there. And they didn't actually go into the facility to raid it. Call 9 January. They didn't go into the facility until the end of the month, 31 January. Like there's no urgency in a biolab that poses a threat. This got is already leaky. That's causing people to get sick. This is heinous. If the FBI, there should be heads rolling at the FBI over this. And it was such a huge intelligence miss that it's not funny. And all these things. Look, I guess people talk. Well, Palantir watches everything. They got all this AI and they got this data fusion. Blah 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 blah. There's so much data out there, it can't digest it. There's so much data it can't connect the dots. But when you got someone who's got a biolab that has all these heinous agents in it, and you're not really investigating everything surrounding this person to the nth degree, Remember, yeah, the Jack London character in Hawaii Five-O, he looked down everything. He supposedly went down and looked, always would look up, where something was manufactured and checks. No, they don't do that. They're too lazy, apparently, which is what you get when you get government services. They're lazy. They don't do the sleuth work, the legwork. Even when something is highly critical to our national defense, to the defense of our people, because they're just not looking into the bio side the way they need to. These biological agents can be far worse than missiles, and you cannot defend from them with no manner of missile defense systems, no manner of weapon systems. You've got to do the sleuth work to find and eliminate these things. That's how that's done. And we've also got to take care amongst ourselves to be biologically aware of what's going on, to keep our immune systems up, and maybe to isolate ourselves if something really bad comes out and breaks out. But they had more than one way to break this stuff out into the population, as it turns out. So it turns out that these guys were running, what they had in Greeley, California, was actually the cover for it was they were selling test kits for the, you know, COVID-19 virus test kits, supposedly manufactured in the U.S., but they turned out they were buying them from China, from an unlicensed lab, cheap stuff, and reselling them here in the United States. Now, what comes in those test kits? Swabs with liquid. What do you do with those swabs? You put them in your nose and twist them vigorously and put them in a test strip. What is there to keep them from injecting virus or other sicknesses into those vials that they ship all over the country that people stick in their nose? What if it's highly contagious? They only got to get a few of them out there. If it's highly contagious, it could spread extremely fast. Not to mention, they had 1,000 transgenic mice with human DNA in them to use to test uh, the efficiency of their viral agents in, and also use as vectors, turn these mice loose anywhere, and they would also help spread whatever. You see what I'm saying? This is heinous that this went. Not only did they have a lab in California, in Greeley, California, but the lab in Las Vegas was left undetected. Yeah, like I said, this guy called the lab in Las Vegas 400 times in the last year. And it took some maid. It took a maid calling the FBI. She got deathly ill, and several other people at that Airbnb did too. So it was the other people getting sick that caught her attention. Apparently, she checked out some garbage, checked into the lab, or did something, and got deathly ill herself. And it still took almost 3 weeks for the FBI to conduct the raid. Is this mind blowing? Does that blow your mind? But that's just the tip of the iceberg. When you look at the overall biological research being conducted at China, when you look at what they're doing, when you factor in the vast number of times recently that they've arrested research staff from China going to American University with suspected biological agents that they shouldn't have been bringing in this country, which could, in those cases, infect our crops. I mean, they're aiming it for our crops, our people. They've got our, you know, they monitor our ports. They got these cameras and the cranes at the ports. They have our power grid hacked. They've got us hacked up one side and down the other. Potential sleeper cell agents, and people act like there's no threat from China. Everything is okie dokie. My friends, it is time to wake up and wake up extremely fast, because China had this philosophy from the days of Mao Zedong of surrounding an enemy in the countryside. That's how they took China. They surrounded the KMT, which was the party, the Kuomintang, which was the party of the Republic of China, which ruled China at the end of World War II, and they ousted them with insurgency and drove them to Formosa Island, which became Taiwan. That's where the Republic of China still exists to this day. It was a republic before the PRC. It's not a breakaway. It is the Republic of China. But all that said, I digress. The situation here is that they have taken that philosophy globally, and they tried to establish choke points like Panama Canal. They were trying to establish choke points at Cape Horn and other places, and Iran has been part of their expanded vision of containing America the same way they contained the KMT by surrounding us with the countryside of other countries. Some of that has backfired. Specifically, we've taken the Panama Canal back. They failed to grab Chile or Argentina and give them access to Cape Horn, but Cape Good Hope in Africa, they still got some access to. So there's a huge military chessboard of things going on, and Iran was a central piece of that. We'll have to see how all that plays out. So these are all things to bear. And Iran played the same philosophy with respect to Israel, trying to surround them with all their proxies. This is, a lesson of warfare taken from Mao Zedong. So these are things you cannot ignore. We're in a big global chessboard, but China wants America. They want to own this territory, and it looks like they got a plan for it. So we're going to go into that here just a little bit. In any event, so let's talk a little bit about this lab in California that that they had taken. As again I said, Jia Beizhu was the owner. He also went by the name of David He. He was a he was a he was convicted in Canada and fled to the United States, so he was already a convict. He had connections, direct connections with the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. Furthermore, he had started quite a number of companies in Canada and the United States, and he's got other companies around. I think there's a lot of investigation that's still in order with respect to this guy, but you cannot think that he is the only one by a long shot. But, just be thankful some housekeeper was there to blow the lid on this lab. Why did it take a housekeeper? So the fact that, he called this house 400 times and he had listed it on as collateral in his uh, bond, bail bond is just wow. You talk about a failing of intelligence. You talk about a failure of detective work. That is off the chart. When they found that lab in Greeley, California, they found COVID-19, tuberculosis, HIV, herpes, and egg fever, and a refrigerator labeled Ebola. So all kind of nasty stuff could have been in that lab, could have been in the lab in Las Vegas. There's some reason we're not being told a whole lot about the contents in the lab in Las Vegas. Maybe because it's such an embarrassment that they missed it. Why are they not telling us more about that? I think that is a big question. So, the most striking thing is that, how long these facilities went undetected and what it took to find them. It wasn't the FBI that discovered any of these facilities. Yeah, they went into them after it was. They didn't discover any of them, but they had all the warning bells were there. So, how do you miss the one in Las Vegas after 3 years later, uh, and after this individual called the lab after Jew called that lab 400 times, David He, whatever you want to call him. So, this is just heinous. I'm going to share some stuff here with you guys. Um, it is beyond heinous. Let me share some things here, and this is going to blow your socks off because I hadn't even got to the good stuff yet. I have not even got close to the good stuff yet, my friends. So this is pictures from the Reedley, California labs, the samples, some of the samples they found. Like I said, and this is the house in Las Vegas, the neighborhood in Las Vegas, the lab in Reedley, California. Uh, this is in that picture is from Vegas, Reedley, California. No, that's the Nevada lab. Pardon me. This is the individual here. This is Jia Beiju. B-A-J-Ju. This is him right here, David He, whatever you can call him. This is the individual. Oh, yeah, wearing a mask, probably because he's around so much nasty stuff, right? So, yeah, they had 1,000 samples discovered in the lab in Las Vegas. being operated by Ori Solomon. So, my friends, this is, and this lady here is Sam Howell. She's kind of blowing the lid on some of this stuff. She's a fellow associate with the New American Century organization, Center for the New American Century, whatever that means. But she's saying, hey, there may be a ton of these labs spread all across the United States, which is what I've been saying for some time. You know, what's it take when these guys just aren't being discovered? This is, and this places are just full of this stuff. This is the Reedley lab, just loaded with suspect stuff. It's not small quantities. Yeah, autoclave bag. Yeah, these people got to wear all this personal protective gear just to go in these places. This stuff is nasty and it's a threat. So let's go a little bit beyond that. Let's get outside of that just a little bit. Um, that's not the article I wanted to show. Hang on, guys. So here's something else you need to be aware of, just to help me and help yourself. There are a lot of contaminants in our own food system, in the products that we use every day, in our shampoos, lotions, dishwashing detergents, and many other products, beauty care products, stuff that we use every day on a daily basis. These companies there's 12 companies that now control 550 brands, and now they control the formulations, and they don't give a fig what goes in these formulations because they're just trying to save money and preserve time on the shelf, and they discovered it's cheaper to settle lawsuits than it is to provide good products. And I've covered this in many other videos, and I will cover some more on this, the different contaminants, like over 90% of your toothpaste, including toothpaste specifically made for kids, that have heavy metals in them, not what kids should be putting in their mouths by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, a lot of these companies are controlled by the big three asset management companies, principally BlackRock, which is run by Larry Fink, that runs other organizations we've discussed. So, guys, I've given you a way to switch away from that. To get out of that network, you can go to switchwithgreg.com. I'll put the link below, and you will discover in here that we've got an American family-owned company. A family-owned company makes everything here in America, supporting American jobs and families, and the products are non-toxic. So they're tested extensively for consumer safety. So that is something to bear in mind, my friends. So check this out. Fill out the form. This website is one I set up. So this information just goes to me and my friend Lisa, who's a member of the community, who will be contacting you and to bring you on board with what this is. So fill this form out and hit submit. Anyway, thank you for that. So let's get back to the news here. I didn't know that was still in here. Oops. Hang on. Minimize that. So here we go. This is what I thought was the next article up. Uh, Chinese scientists reveal experiments with virus 100% fatal to mice. Yeah, why do they got to experiment with this? Why did they have to develop this? What was all the research they were doing with a bat virus previously at Wuhan? Why so much development of all these deadly pathogens? Why are they motivated to develop stuff like this? This stuff should not exist on Earth. Yet, what are they doing? Uh, they are developing extremely deadly pathogens. They have an inordinate obsession with this. Why? And what did they find in Reedley, California? This coronavirus. What is this? Turns out it's a coronavirus. Indeed, a coronavirus related to the one that caused the recent outbreaks. Why are they so obsessed with this? Why don't they quit? Why are they still doing it after this junk got loose in 2019, spread the United States in 2020? Why are they so obsessed with this? Why do they keep doing this? See, there's a good question. Well, weaponizing biotech, how China's military is preparing for a new domain of warfare. And this is from defense1.com. And they talk about, see, they're talking about this Chinese national strategy, a military civilian fusion. Uh, Yeah, and they got this report they put out from China, and biology is a priority of the People's Liberation Army. It could be the forefront of expanding and exploiting this knowledge according to this. And they talk about this 2010's war for biological dominance, written by WWIII. Yeah, so this goes on and on. Gene editing. Yeah, now they're making biotech that can select, biotech that can select genetically who to attack based on your genome. That's what they're going into. And there was this older book that I've mentioned to you guys many times, written by Major General Kui Lang and Wang Jiasu, however you pronounce these guys' names, a couple of colonels in China, talking about unrestricted warfare, in which they laid out the plan. It included bio warfare way back in 1999. So yeah, but that's not all there is. That's not the whole story, my friends. There is this speech, the secret speech, written by, supposedly provided by General Chi Haoting, and he is what's the defense minister of China, the head man in the military. And he gave this speech before his retirement in 2003. And in the speech, it's now some people, challenge the veracity of the speech. They say maybe it wasn't real, that somebody might have generated this. But in this, he basically laid out a plan and said, "Hey, the China's long-term demographics are not good in China. That the Chinese society will collapse if they don't do something." And the United States of America was the obvious best place for them to take, and that they could really take us out completely with bio warfare and basically just come over here and take America. Like it would be theirs for the taking if they wiped us out, and this would be the way they could do it. Now, whether this speech is true or not, this was released and it came to us from the Epic Times in 2019, apparently. Now, it could be that somebody heard this speech and was very alarmed by it, and they recorded it and made sure that it eventually got out because it is an alarming speech. And there are people with conscience in anywhere you go. So maybe somebody, yeah, if this was a real speech, indeed, it would have indeed been a secret speech. Now, what we do know about General Chi Haoting is that he actually did say that war with the United States was inevitable. There's direct quotes from him multiple times stating that. So this, whether this speech was true or not, when you look at the breadcrumbs of the kind of research that are conducted today, it seems like they're on track. They're on track, maybe to fulfill this exact thing that he was talking about in here. Whether he ever said it or not may be irrelevant because it seems to be the vector of where things are heading. And I plan to do another video of why China would really want to take this country. Uh, and that ought to be pretty obvious. There's no better continent in the world for a civilization than the one we're blessed to live in here in America today. So it's high time we wake up. And this is an article here talking about gene editing, how China's got this CRISPR Cas9 gene editing, how they're getting ahead of us using civilian military fusion in their technologies, and why they don't have the same ethics about this that we have here in the West. That's what this article is really all about. So, and just a lot of Dr. Joey Zhang, a lot of different researchers in here in China that are involved in this stuff, including genetically modifying babies to create Chinese super soldiers, among other things. So it's off the charts what they're doing over. It's utterly off the charts. I'm going to stop the share because here's what it boils down to. It's time to wake up, my friends. China is the largest threat the United States of America has ever known. And they're not just a threat to the United States, because in that report from the general, who was the defense minister of China, he stated specifically they wanted to take Canada, the U.S., and Australia. And having done that, they thought that they would have Europe very much on alert. Oh, yeah, whatever, that they would just be totally subservient from that point on until they decide to take them too, probably. So, um, guys, this can't be ignored, or you believe it or not. Or you believe that general speech or not is almost irrelevant because of all the other vectors we're seeing and where they're pointing. It's not good. It cannot be ignored. These biolabs in America, all the researchers bringing over biological agents, all those potential sleeper cells here in America, how they've hacked everything up one side and down the other here in America. And when you start looking at the whole picture and you look at how they've tried to insert themselves in various choke points around the world, the Monroe Doctrine suddenly makes a lot of sense to try to get them out of our hemisphere, but that's not enough. It's also going to require sleuth work. The FBI's got to wake up and do their job and do their homework, or some heads should be rolling. They ought to go home if they can't accomplish that. So these are all things that we've got to be alert to. This is a huge threat. It's time to wake up. And so I ask you to write your congressman and go to freedomrestorationfoundation.org and go to the action center and scroll to the bottom where it tells you how to contact your congressman. Write your congressman and tell them that you expect the FBI to get involved in looking this stuff up and trying to find these potential biolabs, to find these sleeper cells in America, whether they be Chinese or otherwise. The drug gang members, you got to remember the drug gangs are being bankrolled essentially by China. And they're getting their supplies, which they eliminate a lot of American lives with every year, from China, the constituents for that certain opioid that I'd have dubbed, to keep them alert, and the algors have no rhythm, F-ball. You know what I'm talking about here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, do some research. So, my friends, this is not trivial. China, just by the drugs they're putting into America, is already at war with us. The way they're hacking us, the way they position themselves, and that not only that, they're after our culture. They're trying to divide us here at home. Everything they do to bring us down. They're providing money through Roy Singham, and he's promoting their agenda right here in the United States. It's spilling over to the political left. No, political left it has a better than even chances of taking over the midterms, not just the House and Senate, because if they take both houses, they're going to go for impeachment of both the president and vice president at the same time and try to put the Speaker of the House, who at that point would be a Democrat, in the president's seat. And then the borders will be thrown wide open and we'll lose our country. Uh, We've got a lot to be aware of, but right now we need to focus on these biolabs. That is a key thing. We need to get the FBI woken up and move in. That needs to be a priority. Not only that, local law enforcement. And if you see things that are suspicious, it looks like it might be a biolab or something strange, report it, because that's how they get reported. That's how they were found. A housekeeper, a housekeeper, a housekeeper. So it takes citizens' vigilance sometimes, the vigilance of citizens, to bring this stuff to attention. Once they brought it to attention, now how could they ignore it? Oh, yeah, okay, we better go over and look at it. Never mind. 400 phone calls in a year. The fact that the property was listed as collateral on Jews, David He, whatever you want to call him, on his bail bond, and they still didn't catch it until a maid reported, because she got deathly ill and found all this stuff. And then it took them 3 weeks from the time she reported to actually raid the place. You can't make this stuff up, people. You can't make this stuff up. It's heinous. Mm. Anyway, heads should roll. Anyway, my friends, I want to thank everybody for watching. Keep your eyes wide open, your head on a swivel, in more ways than one. The days we're coming into are getting perilous. And I do believe that as individuals, we can come out ahead, but we've really got to be aware and mindful of what we're doing. And prepping is in order like never before, especially our global food chain problems and things that's coming down the pike at us, my friends. Get ready. Don't waste any time. The time to languish and sit back and twiddle your thumbs is over, because it's like the game of musical chairs. When the music stops and you sit down, what you got's all you got. And the fat lady's singing right now, and the music's about to stop, it looks like. So I just want to thank everybody for watching again. Eyes wide open, head on a swivel. Get ready, get prepared, prep and pray. Be right with your Maker. Today is Easter. I'm recording this on Easter. It's a good time to say, get right with your Maker. And I thank the Lord that God gave His Son for us. You know, God is great. But you guys, He expects you to take care of business. I mean, we've got the warning. We've got the warning. Act accordingly. So with that, I am going to say, Greg out. Oh yeah, watch here for another video. Greg out.